Everybody, this is All Things Cheryl, basically here to do a review and a recap of Cherish today, episode 5. You guys really haven't seen me, but I have been basically following the show, and I do have review and recaps of episode 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and now we actually are going to do 5, and I'm going to load it all up in one round. So let's go with episode 5. And basically, you all know that this is an anthology, and an anthology is everything basically happens within a time frame of a time. And so we go throughout the whole complete day focusing on one specific goal and one specific topic. And so we are 9 o'clock in the morning, which is the time frame in which we see that Gently and Evan is basically preparing for their wedding. And we see the two of them inside of a church, and both of them are facing backwards toward each other. And we see that the pastor or the priest, we're not quite sure whether or not if this is, we know that this is Evan's church, not necessarily Gentry and Gently. And so we see that the preacher or the pastor is basically asking them a round of questions, is to see whether or not they understand what they are getting ready to get into. And every time that the preacher or the pastor would ask them a question, they had a paddle to see exactly if their answers are coincide together. And so we go on and we see that 9 o'clock a.m. in the morning, they are basically really excited due to the fact that in episode 4, Gently had basically, I'm giving you a recap a little bit, in episode 4, she had basically turned down Evan's proposal. She didn't basically say no, that she wasn't ready. She just said no, she wasn't ready. And of course, Evan, he became upset, and he kind of sort of got rid of the ring. That's just a little bit of recap and a little bit of review. And so we move into around 9:30. About 9:30, they basically completed their little counseling with the preacher, and they're standing outside of the church. But inside of the church, we noticed that Evan's friends and family, and this particular church looks like he's been going there for quite some time, is gorgeous. It looks like it's a cathedral. It looks like it might be Catholic, of the way some of the ornaments are within inside of the church. And so we see a lot of people basically coming up to Evans and Gently and congratulating them, more so of Evans than Gently. And so we see Gently and Evans basically standing outside of the Cathedral Church, and basically Gently is telling Evans that he has to be there at a particular time, and that she has been basically trying to bring everybody together so everybody can get fitted for gowns and tuxedos and things like that. And so Gently tells Evan basically be there, be on time. She's not kidding. Just make sure you be there. Now, it seems like Evan, and it seems like it might be the time frame in the year. It seems like they're going to be basically getting married within a month. And so they're trying to do everything together. It doesn't seem like they have a wedding planner or anything. It seems like Gently is basically putting all of this together. Now, while we're still in this time frame around 9 o'clock, we see that, let me make sure I got it together. We see that Ben and Gently is basically inside. It looks like a hall or something that Ben has basically gotten together and really bringing everything together. He's basically showing and telling Gently that they have lots of space in there where the band could basically put, because it seems like there's going to be a live band. And so we see that we see that Evan has basically made it to the hall, and along with that we see that Evan's mother has shown up. Now, this was totally a surprise to Gently because she had no idea that she would be basically there, and that's Evan's mother. And of course we see that Evan's mother is kind of, we can tell that she's an upper class and that she is a little bit snippy, a little bit snoozy, okay? And so she basically comes in, and we see that Ben and her is meeting for the first time. Now, Ben is pretty good in terms of sizing people's up, especially he did it when he first met Evans, and now he's pretty much sizing up Evans' mother. And so Evan's mom is not really, enthused about where, this her first son and her firstborn, her only son, is get married, but this is what she is not envisioning for her son. And so we see the two of them meeting for the first time, and she asks Ben about, the vineyard. She thinks that the vineyard is good, but in actuality, in the back of her mind, she was like, this is garbage, this is trash, okay? But I'm going to go along with this is because my son is in love with this woman, and when she first met me and, on my side of the town, I wasn't too, I didn't present myself too well. So we go on and we see that Gently is basically looking complex, because the two have basically, I'm not going to say the two kind of sort of hit it off when they first met each other. I'm going to say it was a lot of questioning, meeting the parents for the first time. They know that their young adults have met each other, and they know that they're in love with each other. And so Gently and Ben and I forgot what her name. I didn't really write everything, so I'm coming off of my brains. And so she started asking him about the catering aspect of the vineyard. And at this time, this is when we get to see the live band that basically Ben think that it should have a live band at the reception, because this is the reception. And so we see these old timers, and I'm not going to say old timers, but old timers, okay. And Ben is really, really excited due to the fact that he knows this particular band. And this band is called Earth, Wind, and something. I'm going to say the fake Earth, Wind, and Fire band. So he's excited, and he said he invited them to basically come, and so Evan and Gently and Evan's mother could basically hear the band. And let me tell you, the band was terrible. Okay, they were terrible, but they thought, and Ben thought, that it was like uptight, you know, I mean, not uptight, but they thought it was like cool. You could see Ben, and you could see Evan, and you could see Gently and the mother. And the mother is like, she's really trying to act like she's really enjoying it and everything, but all the while in the back of her mind, and she's saying, are they serious about this? I can't do this. So in the meantime, we see that Gently and Ben is basically there, and the mother, Ben, and Evan's mom, they kind of did okay. And so this is when we see that Evan and his mother had another appointment. And so the appointment was, they had another appointment in the Shah or somewhere over there by the water and everything. But before they went to that appointment, we see that there is another coming together, and this time we see that the neighborhood baker catering women who's basically been with Gently from the time that she was a little girl up to now. And we see that the four of them, Ben, Evan, Gently, and the mother, are basically sitting down and doing a cake testing. In other words, you know how you're getting ready to, the cake is kind of sort of the center part of a wedding. And so we see that Ben and Gently and, you know, the mother-in-law is basically sitting and looking at this cake. Now, I'm going to tell you, the cake looked good. I mean, it looks like they had a velvet cake, and then they had a lemon cake. And so they were doing the tasting. And so at first, Ben tried to offer Evan's mother a slice of the lemon cake, but we find out that she was sort of allergic to that particular flavor. So we went on to another type of flavor, and the mother tasted, and she said, this is very good. But then this is where we can see her bourgeois came out. And she said, but this is not really considered a wedding cake. And Ben and Gently has basically told Evan's mother, and Evan's mother said, well, you know, we will basically consider. And the woman, the neighborhood baker, said, consider, I'm baking Gently's wedding cake. And Ben and her looked at each other and said, this is non-negotiable. She's baking the cake. And so, you know, Evan's mother said, oh, okay, no problem and everything. And so we see that they basically, Ben, Evan's mom and him had another appointment that they basically had to make. And so they left the neighborhood baker and went to where they had another appointment, right? And so this is when Ben basically had a conversation with Gently, and told them that that Evan and her are from two different sides of the tracks, and that to if she's going to marry Evans, to make sure that she understands the difference between the two of them, and to always go in with your eyes open. Don't go in blindsided, because if you go in blindsided, this is where you're going to have some bumpy roads along the way. And so this is when Gently told Ben, she said that, well, we don't judge each other or anything like that, but Ben basically told Gently that Evan is from another side of the town, and this is actually who he is. He may pretend that everything is good and he's, on board with everything, but actual reality, this is who he really is. So, in other words, don't want you to get hurt or anything. I want you to go in there, make sure that you are basically aware of what you are getting ready to go into. And so gently, she says, okay, I see what you're talking about. We will do that. And so the meantime, and this is where we see where what Ben basically was telling Gentry was basically true. It's because Evan's mother went behind Gentry's back and basically made an appointment for Evan and her to go to a traditional bakery, a traditional where they deal with wedding cakes and tasting. And this is when basically Evan tells his mother that this is that the cake is really Gentry and this is what she wants. And then this is when the mother begins to really horn in on Evans and tell Evans, like, basically she said, in so many words, she says, I know you, I know the type of person that you are, and let's be honest, do you want your Stanford friends, your Silicon Valley people basically coming into a hood and coming into a rundown hall and see this type of affair in terms of you being, I guess, the vice president and getting ready to really go into your own business? Do you want them to see this, or do you want them to come into where there's a nice scene, a nice California scene overlooking the waterfront, a majestic, what did she say, majestic? I know the word was majestic scene or something, wasn't quite sure. But this is when she horned in, and he basically did not say no. He basically kind of sort of agreed to the fact that he's only going along with Gently because this is what she wanted, but in actuality, he's not really doing her or him any justice by not really being his true, authentic self. And so, after we deal with the behind the scene, we're trying to really horn in on the cake. Then we see a scene where is that we see that Gently and Ben is basically at a hall learning how to do the waltz. Now, we know that this waltz is not in their character. While the camera is basically focusing on their feet, we see them making all kinds of mistakes. We see that this is not their cup of tea. And basically Ben said, why are we wasting all our time learning how to do this waltz? And what it's really going to do is that we know we're going to be, getting down and getting ready to dance to the fake Earth, Wind, and Fire band. And so that part right there was kind of fun. It was kind of basically true because, they're getting, he's trying to learn to do the father-daughter dance. You know, when you go to a wedding, the father and the daughter, the father dances with his daughter. See that Ben is really excited due to the fact that Gentry is getting married, and he is about to be kind of a sort of a single parent, kind of sort of. And so this is when Gently tells Ben, she says in so many words, thank you for basically being there. And Ben says, no, thank you for being there, because Gently told him that you're getting ready to be out there, or if you know, you would have been out there doing your thing. And then this is when Ben tells Gently, he says, no, I basically would probably be dead if it was not for you. And so in other words, we know that Ben is basically has raised Gently as if it was his daughter. He took on the responsibility of raising Gently. And so we go on and we see that the time frame is a little bit around somewhere around 4, 5. The reason why I said it's somewhere around 4 or 5 is that we see that Gently's friend, her best friend, and it seems like her best friend has basically made one of her dreams come true. She is a flight attendant. We can tell that by the uniform. So she's basically has became a flight attendant, and she basically came to pick Gentry up to drop her off at the dressmaker. Now, before Gently gets there, we see the meeting and the coming together of Evan's father and the old friends that came together. Apparently, it seems that Evan's father and mother is kind of an odd couple also. He is from, I think, the same area. I think they said Crenshaw. I'm not quite sure. Could be wrong. Put, you know, if you have some comment on that one, you know, give me what the information. I think it was Crenshaw. And we find out that he is basically from the same side of the tracks that Ben is. And so they started, you know, basically talking and finding out that they kind of sort of knew each other. And this is when they weren't expecting him to be there, but I kind of think that, and even though they said that he had his own tux, because basically they were getting fitted for their tux, and so we see the tribe, we see Gently's tribe, who's basically have been there for her, and we see that they are basically reminiscing, and then this is when we see Evans. And he basically wanted to, you know, be in the conversation as to what they were basically talking about when Evan's father and Ben and them got together, but really it didn't really make any sense because he was referring to them as kind of boys in the hood, but really it wasn't boys in the hood. We could tell that Evans was basically a middle class millennial kid, really didn't really know, and this was really true as to, you know, the type of things that they did when Ben and Evan's father was coming up as an adult. And so this is when we see that the men has basically got together. They are being tailored for their tux, and we see that they have basically bought a t-shirt which basically has Gentry's father picture on it, and they wanted to wear it, and they couldn't decide whether or not if they should wear it after the wedding or before the wedding. They weren't quite sure, but they were basically paying homage to Gentry's father with his picture on the t-shirt. And so while we're dealing with the men, we see that Evan's sister and Evan's niece. Evan's sister is basically being fitted for her gown. And she's in this gorgeous baby powdered blue kind of gown. And you could tell that kind of sort of was like a couple of years that, you know, has went on because she's more slimmer. And seems like she's lost a little bit of weight. And see, like the young lady, it looks like she could be in her early 20s, could be kind of, she had a nice haircut, no short bob, you know, kind of not bald, but nice fitting her face and everything. And we see that when she's in her gown, she says that she wanted this gown to feel that, you know, she's kind of sort of a woman now. And in the fact that so it seems that she's no longer a wife. So it seems like in terms of the time frame, it seems that she and her Evan's best friend, brother-in-law seemed like they basically got divorced, and he's nowhere in the scene. So the reason why I say this is that we see Evan's sister in the mirror and saying that she loves the gown, and that she wants to go with, you know, her daughter, so her daughter could basically find a tux that basically she, you know, would be interested in, and that she loved her. It was a beautiful scene. And so looking at the time frame and looking at the daughter, we don't want to assume, because women look very, very beautiful, especially in tuxedos and tailored tuxedos that is basically fitting. So we're not going to say that she may be, or we're assuming, but I'm going to say that from what I can see and the way the camera is panning, I believe this young woman, Evan's niece, is a non-conforming person. Non-conforming could be, she could be straight, she could be whatever, but we just don't know, you know. So I'm going to say she's a non-conforming person. And so we go on, and then that's when we begin to see that basically Gently is basically is in the fitting room, and this is when Marlo, I'm not quite sure, but before the next 3 episodes I'm going to have that last name. Evan's mother basically comes in, and she's looking at the gowns, and she's looking at Gentry, and she says, well, Gentry, have you tried on any gowns, or you've tried on anything here? You see anything that you want to do, wear, or fit, or just fit on? And then this is when Gentry says, no, basically I'm having my gown basically made. Now, before that, when the time frame went back early in the 9 o'clock, around 9:30, 10 o'clock, we see Gently and her best friend inside of Miss Luma's house, and we see Gently basically packing up. And then this is when we see the material that Gently basically wanted to have her gown made, because she got it from Thailand, and she held on to it because she said one day she felt that this could be a very special material, and so that special material is upon us now. So Gently says, no, I'm basically having, you know, my gown made from, I think, the dry cleaners or anything like that. Gently, it seemed like she's not really into a lot of, you know, spending money, you know, on brand stuff. She's just like, she's so used to coming up in the neighborhood and so used of dealing with using what's around them, that, you know, for her to be in an atmosphere or an area, or to be able to do lavish thing or spend money on lavish thing, she's not really used to this, because that's one of the things, or one of the problems she basically had, is because she really wasn't used of having someone to lavish her in the very fine things of life. And so this is when gently tells Evan's mother that her mother, Evan's mother said every mother's daughter every mom wants to see her daughter. I think it was every mother's daughter wants to see their daughter at least in a gown, and that's what the whole thing is about, trying on things and trying on the gowns and stuff like that. And so, and then this is when Gently says, look, I basically did what I said I set out to do, and that is to bring everyone together and basically get fitted for, you know, their gowns and their tuxedos. And basically, I've done what I needed to do. But then this is when we see Evan's mom really sat down and said, look, I understand exactly, you know, how you feel and everything. But she says, well, why don't you just, you know, look around and see, you know, if there's anything that you really, really like it. And, you know, I guess she's saying it somewhere, I'm your mother-in-law, so can I basically see exactly kind of sort of how you would look in, you know, some of the gowns. And so, of course, Gently, you know, went on and, you know, tried some of the gowns. Because the mother said, go ahead, and she asked the person who was handling her to pick out some gowns. And so we see Gently on this podium, and basically Gently has picked out this gorgeous gown that is in, I think it's kind of like an off-white, off-brown skin tone, and it fit her personality perfect, right? And so Gently was like, this is, you know, Evan's mother said, this gown is perfect, looks beautiful on you and everything. And so this is when Gently says, well, I basically can't afford this. You know, I don't have this type of money. And so this is when Evan's mother said, don't worry about it. I basically, you know, got it. So she pulls out her card and everything. And so this is when the saleswoman tells Gently, says, well, really, you don't really have to worry about it, because if you want it, you can have it. Is because this is where we see, this is when we see the dynamics, and then this is when we find out the real deal. She says, well, your husband to be basically left his credit card, and then we could see the camera basically panned over to Evan's mother and kind of, you know, did that kind of smirk and everything. Money, right? And he said to the salesperson, he says, well, I knew that if Gently basically got into the store, and basically she started, you know, fitting some of these gowns, that she would really see something better than, you know, what she had really, you know, her original thought. He said something like that. In other words, he was saying that he really didn't really want Gentry really to do kind of a neighborhood kind of stuff. He really kind of wanted a traditional wedding. And so this is when we see this dynamic. This is when the mother, the niece, and Gentry gets off. And she goes in, and she goes towards the look that she has on her face, and she goes towards Evan. And she's telling Evan, she says, in so many words, I'm going to try to make it short because this is getting kind of long. She says, you know what? Now I see exactly who was the person who's been really sabotaging, all of my ideas. All the while I'm thinking that basically it was your mother. But really, in actuality, it wasn't your mother. It was basically you. You were the one who really didn't want. She says, "Really, Evan? Do you really think you wanted to bring your friends in front of a hall in the middle of the? Not I'm going to say ghetto, but I'm just going to say in the middle of the ghetto, and to see a cake baked on top of it, not a wedding cake in so many words." She says, "You know what, really? You really haven't really been truthful. You, all the while I'm thinking that it's your mother, and really in actuality, it's not your mother. It's basically you. You are the one who's not really being true or authentic." And I'm basically going to have to, and I was just kind of paraphrasing it, but Gentle was basically really true. Because if you look at the episode of 1, 2, 3, and 4, Gently has not changed who she was. That was one of the reasons why she was kind of afraid of saying yes in episode 4, is because she felt that Evan's world was basically changing her. And she really don't want to change. She wants to kind of stay true to who she really was. And this is what Ben was basically trying to tell her too. That, keep your eyes open. Don't just go in there blindfolded. And so this is when she says, "Look, I don't even know if I can trust your mother." And basically she's right. And she says, "And I don't even know if I can really trust you." Basically, yeah, we don't know. But in some sense, she's right. And so this is where I said in one of my episodes, I called her kind of sort of the runaway bride, is because I'm thinking, oh shit, she getting ready to run again. And so Evan stopped it because he knew that she was getting ready to say, "Look, this is it, I'm done." And so this is when Evan says, "Look, I just wanted to make you happy. Remember when we first got together, we said we kind of sort of wanted to make each other happy and everything?" And she says, "Yes." She says, "Well, he says, "Well, this is Evan's come up," which I was kind of surprised. He says, basically, "Let's do it." And she says, "Let's do what?" He says, let's just go ahead and get married." And she said, "Get married like now?" She said, "Yes." He says, "Yes, let's just go ahead and do it." And so now, remember now, she had that dress on. That was a beautiful dress on. And so she said, "Okay." And then this was when Jenny said, "This is crazy. This is crazy." And so they wind up going to tell, their prospective father-in-law and mother-in-law that they are not going to have this traditional wedding, that they don't want anybody in this wedding. They just want the two of them and nobody else. And I'm just like, oh, that's interesting, because we really haven't really seen, all the while it's kind of sort of been, everything been around and centered kind of sort of around Evan, and not really centered around Gentry. It's been, in my view, in my opinion, it's kind of sort of been one-sided, kind of sort of. And so we see that everybody agreed and they understood it. And so then this is when we see the wedding picture. The wedding picture is basically taken with a cell phone. So we see them taking their wedding picture, right? So we see them running off and getting into the car and going somewhere to basically get married. And then we see a time frame. I think the time frame said maybe, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to say around 8:30, 9 o'clock, because basically it was dark. And then we see this very beautiful scene, and then we see a distant picture of a vow. And then we see the two of them basically standing there getting married, right? In which I find it very interesting. They said their vows in two languages. Surprised that Evan kind of sort of knew Spanish, but you know, when you're in California, you know, sometimes you learn how to speak that language, and he probably knew a little bit from school or whatever. And then we see the both of them translating it in English. And the time frame was around, I think maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock. And that's my review of episode 5, where the two different dynamics basically come together. Now, this is very interesting is because when they got married, I kind of looked at this 3 or 4 times, you know, 3 or 4 times. I looked at it 3 or 4 times, and I'm saying they did their vows in Spanish. And I looked at over the thing, it looks like, I believe they might have went into Mexico or Tijuana to basically get married. Not quite sure, but I'm kind of thinking that they did. This is my assumption. What do you guys think? Do you think that they got married in the United States, or did they get married in Tijuana? I think they might have gotten married in Tijuana, because in Tijuana, basically they have where, you know, you can get married right there on the spot, just like Las Vegas. So they might have went to Las Vegas. Who knows? They could have went to Las Vegas, Nevada, and got married. But that kind of puts a question mark is. And the question mark, where did they get married? Did they get married in Albuquerque? No, did they get married in Tijuana, Mexico? Did they get married in Las Vegas? We don't know. We just know that we see a chapel. Now we know in that as we travel to California, you know, in Las Vegas, California, they have wedding chapels all over the place. So they might have went there. We're not quite sure. Put it in the comments. Where do you think that they got married at? And also, we did not see Miss Luma in this episode. Now this is going to be a long review, but actuality, hey, where was Miss Luma? We didn't see her. They stated that she was still sleeping. Now, perhaps, you know, we're not going to say it. She was just sleeping. Okay, so the mere fact of the matter is, what's the deal with Gentry and the mother-in-law? Do you think they're going to get along a little bit more better? Because the way this ended, and there's 3 more episodes, that this was it. But no, this is not it, because we have 3 more episodes to deal with. Now remember now, Gentry is a free spirit person. And the conversation that her and Miss Luma was talking about her not really marrying and blase we, blase thee, and she says that she's free. I'm wondering, you know, what do you think? Is Gently going to follow in Miss Luma's footsteps? Is their marriage, is Evan really going to come to his own? Is he really going to do his own business? Now remember, now when Evan and Gently got together, when Evan had the accident and Gently was at Evan's house, and she told him that there's one particular area where she has not visited. And I'm wondering, are they saving that for the last? Due to the fact, will Gently make it to the, what is that, the steps of some island somewhere in another country? And when will Evans actually be successful in his app? Now we know that he's quit his job. So these are all of the questions. And until the next time, remember, click subscribe, become a member. Well, not a member, but a subscriber. And I'll see you in the next go of Cherish Today. And that's a wonderful title, Cherish Today. Now understand that Cherish Today is an anthology, which means that everything happens in one straight day. The timeline with this is I'm ending. Take care. Remember, love is for everyone.